Welcome everybody to the first of, I hope, a few tutorial videos on what we covered in class for our Lego design camp. Today we worked on building a official Lego set that we imported in to the Studio program, and I'm going to go over step by step how we did that. So first off, we're starting with a new blank scene file. Again, we call this our workspace or our scene, where all of our pieces come together to make a model. I'm going to first come up to File at the top corner here and go down to where it says Import Official Lego Set. So there's a little bit of a side menu, and then over there's Import Model, which if you already have a model that you've pulled off of the site Bricklink, where this piece of software comes from, they provide models there for some people to download. The other one, though, is Import an Official Lego Set. Okay, and this is where we can enter in the set number. Every Lego set that Lego produces has a unique set number all the way back to the very beginning of the sets that they made years ago. So we can enter in any set number, and more or less the sets can be loaded in. Not all the pieces for some sets work, and things like cloth for different objects, ropes, stickers, things like that that aren't actually bricks tend to have a problem coming in, obviously. So what we're going to do is I already have a set in mind that we're going to use. We're going to build a Lego parrot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of organize my screen here, and we're going to build this little guy. He's a Lego macaw parrot that came out a few years ago. But as you can tell, there's a little number on the first page underneath the Lego logo. There's this black number here. That's the set number. And like I said, every set has a unique number associated with it. So if we come over here and we type in the number 30472, the preview shows what that set is. Now, depending on how old the set is, it might not have an image, but typically they do. Now, there's two options here for importing. You can import it in the scene, which is your big space here in the middle, or you can import it as a palette. And what that does is it'll take all the pieces that are in the set and bring them over here and put them in its own special category of a catalog. So right now we have the master catalog open, and this is literally all the bricks that Lego makes, but we can spend minutes and hours searching through all of this to find the pieces to make, just like if you were to use your own Lego in a giant box that wasn't properly organized, you'd be digging through it for hours to find all the little parts that you need. So this is a great way to bring in a set of Lego that you may own or you may want someday to maybe just play with it. All we need to do is I'm going to first import it into the scene, and I feel this is the best way to learn the program, is to import into the scene, because what it does is it lays all the bricks out as if you were laying them out on a table, all nice and organized before you start to build, so you can see all the pieces, as a whole. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that, and then we're going to also make sure we're not going to check include minifig parts or extras. It doesn't really apply to this. There's no actual parts for any kind of minifig, so we don't need that. And extra parts we don't really need to worry about either, because we're not going to bother with that. So we're just going to import it as is, import in scene, and make sure the scene number is right, and make sure that there's a image here, and it actually even breaks down how many parts there are right there. So, and it came out in 2016, so there you go. It gives you a little bit of information there. We're going to import it in, and this window comes up afterwards. And sometimes if you're importing a set with a lot of non-brick parts, you might get some errors. I come across this quite a bit if I'm trying to import a set that has any kind of characters in it, because they don't provide in this program all of the possible combinations of characters, like their upper part and their lower part. Sometimes they have textures on them that this program just doesn't have. So you'll see those errors here when they come up. But good news is this guy doesn't have any problems with them whatsoever. And it even gives you a link here for instructions available at Brickset. So you can also find that there. But we've already got the instructions here, which I pulled off of lego.com. and I'm going to click OK. So now, like I was saying, it imports the pieces all together in your scene, so you can see it as if you were laying it out on a table, all nice and organized, which is typically how I like to build my sets. I like to take the time to open up all the bags, make sure all the pieces are there, because sometimes that does happen. The pieces aren't there. And then it made nice and organized by the color as well, because your eyes will be looking for certain shapes, but also certain colors, right, when you go to build something. So it's nice to have it all nice and organized. So right off the bat, you can see I'm kind of moving the camera around, and we talked about this in our first class. To move the camera or the view, I'm simply clicking and holding the right mouse button and then moving the mouse at the same time, and that allows me to change my view. And this is a common way to move around in space like this in computer games and other pieces of design software. So it's a very common way to sort of move your view. And then to sort of what we call pan. Pan is referring to when we move from side to side. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and the left mouse button, and that's going to allow me to move my scene up and down and sort of pan this way and that way, or move left and right and up and down like that. And then finally, we can zoom in with our mouse wheel, which again is a very common way to zoom in on things, especially in gaming. A very, very common way to move around. Okay. All right, so let's get started building this guy. We're going to come over here and we're going to sort of make our view so that we can see all the bricks, but also have a little bit of extra space here. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab this guy over here and I'm going to set this piece down. And showing our instructions here, this is our first piece, right? So we're going to grab that, and then we're going to take the in step 2, we're going to take the first of 2 pieces, the black 1x4, which is this, okay, and the red 2x1 or 1x2, like that, and those go together. Now I'm just simply clicking on them, holding the click, right? You want to click and drag. You can also click and release and it'll hold it as well, but I tend to click and drag it into place, and it'll snap into any location that it feels it can fit. Now the program's pretty smart when it comes to what it can and cannot do as opposed to a brick. So if it can fit in the real world, it'll snap to the position that it should be able to fit in, okay? So right now I want it to go there, and I'm just gonna move my camera a little bit like that and sort of adjust the view. I'm constantly changing my view to get all the right angles of it to make sure that I'm doing it right. And then step 3, we're just adding a 2x2 plate on top of that, and there we go. And then step 4, we're going to be adding 2 little black pieces to the bottom that I think are representing its feet. So I'm going to click and grab that one, and now this is the first time we get to actually move something and change its direction. So to change directions, since we have to sort of move it in position, I'm using the arrow keys on my keyboard. The side arrow keys, left and right, move it around 90 degrees every time you press the arrow. And then the up and down, flip it from upside down to right side up and back again, okay? So I'm gonna just make sure that it's right, and then I'm going to zoom in a bit so I can see where it's going. And the instructions are showing that it needs to go like that, okay? And then we're gonna do the same thing for another piece. I'm gonna grab that, and we're gonna spin around. And while you're holding the piece, you can also spin the camera, and you can also move the camera as long as you're following the same controls as before. So that's the right mouse button, click and hold it while you spin the view, and then you can also move the camera left and right with the Shift key, holding the left mouse button and the Shift key together. Okay, so I'm just going to click that, and that's going to go there. Now we're on to step 5. Okay, and of course, because this is recorded, you guys can pause it and not get lost behind as I speed along, as I tend to go pretty quick. I'm sorry for that. So I'm going to take this clip piece now, and it's going to go on the back, just like the instructions. And then I'm going to grab this 1x2, and it's going to go there. Okay. And then we've got 2 pieces that need to go on top of the clip right there and there. So this piece here is going to go there, and then we're going to just turn this around, sort of play with our view a bit, and then grab this piece, and it goes there. Okay, then we're going to do a brick here. Oh, hang on. This is where I want to do a sub model. So I talked about sub models earlier. There are these separate steps that are inside of a step that they get you to build sort of a group of bricks as one build to add to the main build, and that's called a sub model. So we're just going to do that quickly here. This is a really simple one. We're just going to grab this brick and grab the other 2x2 brick, and then we're going to grab the two pieces that have the ball joint on them and put them on top like this, okay? And then to make a submodel, all we do is we make sure our view can see the pieces that we want to select, and we click our left mouse button and drag a box. Now we don't want to make the box too big because look what happens. It starts to grab things that we don't want. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to how big our box is around the bricks, and we're going to grab it like that. Now you can see there's a blue outline of all the pieces, and you can double check to make sure all the parts have been picked up by that selection box. And then you're going to go down here to the bottom right corner where there's two little buttons here. One's create in submodel, and the one's copy and mirror. We're going to grab the create in submodel button, create into submodel button. We're going to click that, and a little window pops up to ask you to name that submodel. And you want to name it if you have a lot of things going on. So in this case, in this bird, we have the tail and two other wings that we're going to be making into submodels next. So this one can be called body, or just leave it the way it is for now if you want to. And then what happens is when we click OK, it makes all of those bricks into one movable object. Those bricks still are separate bricks, but now we've grouped them in a submodel so that we can move it now on its own and sort of flip it around and do what we need to do as if it was just one piece. So now we're going to put it on top of here, just like in the instructions, okay? And we're not done with step 6 yet because we still have one piece left, and that is the 2x2 slope. And that's going to come over here, and we're just going to turn it again with our arrow keys, and it's going to go like that. Now, we're going to go on to step 7. So step 7 is we grab a 2x2 brick, okay? And then we're looking for that 1x2 brick, which is over there. We're gonna grab that. So that's pretty easy, okay? No real crazy stuff there. So then we're gonna grab these two white pieces, and these are modified bricks that have a hole or a stud on the side. It allows us to add pieces to a side of a model, which is nice, okay? And those go there and there. And again, I just use the arrow keys to change the direction of where the hole is pointing, okay? And then I'm gonna grab this 2x2 plate, and it's gonna go there. And then I'm going to grab a 2x2 slope, and it's going to go up top for starting of step 9. And this piece goes in front like that. Pretty simple. Okay. And then we're going to grab this 2x2 plate and go like that. Okay. And then we're going to grab the piece that makes up the beak, which is a really cool piece. It's a slope with a little point on the end that makes a perfect parrot beak, I think. Oh, you know what? I messed up on this. This needs to come up one more like that. That's the great thing about this program, because if you mess up, it's very easy to fix, okay? So this, I just snapped it from one to the other and like that, and the parrot beak goes on like that. So we start to look like a parrot a little bit. Next, we're going to go over how to rotate something. Now, our eyes will be going on to these white studs here that are on the side. But first of all, let's finish off the top of his head with the red slope. And you can't really see all that well, but there's a dark blue or navy blue slope piece similar to the beak, but a little bit different. There's not quite the arch in it. So that's going to go on the top of his head to make the very top of his head. Now, the eyes are the next thing. The eyes we're going to bring over here, and I'm going to show you how to rotate once it's in position. So you can use a tool called hinge, which will allow us to spin it around on a certain axis. So we're going to take our eye, and I'm going to flip it so that it's facing away from the bird and that the hole that it's going to attach to goes on the back. Now we want to make sure that the eye goes center. You see how the hole is sort of in the center of the piece? That's where it's going to attach on the stud. So we're going to bring it up. And because the stud, the white stud, is the only place on the side of the bird that it's going to be able to attach to, it's going to be wanting to snap to it. So you can see here, it doesn't really show up until it gets to there. And then that's telling us that that's the only place that it can really go. Okay, it can't go there. It has to go here. So we click on that. Now, in the instructions, it shows the eye is actually pointed towards the front of the bird, and this is pointed towards the back. So we have to rotate it slightly. Now, we can use the arrow keys, right? We can play around with that, but that doesn't really help us that much. I'm going to show you another way to do it with the hinge tool. So we're going to sort of zoom in here, and if you've noticed as you've been building, every time you select a piece, this little icon shows up. And when you hover over it, it changes to two other little icons. Well, these are our tools, our move tool and our hinge tool. And this little thing, if you hover over it, so this arrow, this multi-arrow thing is the moving tool. So in animation and modeling on the computer, there are different axes. There's the X and Y and Z axis. And that's what symbolizes that in the three arrows. And then this one here with the circle that shows a little tiny arrow going in a circle, that is our rotate tool or our hinge tool. So we're going to hover over that and we're going to click on the little tiny button for the rotate. And what's going to happen is it's going to let us have this big arrow here. And if we click on it, right now it's blue, but if you hover over it, it turns red. And you click and drag it, this ring comes up, this big ring with all these black lines in it. And this allows us to spin it along on where it's connected to the rest of the body. So it's connected on that one stud, and it's allowing us to spin it on that point. That cube, the little cube in the middle, shows us where it's being connected to, so we can rotate it around. And this is how you could also give a little life to the model too. You could give it a little bit of character by moving the eye just a little bit, just enough to make it look a little bit more realistic. Okay, so I'm going to move it so that the eyeball sort of points towards the nose of the bird or the beak, and that's it. So again, all I did was I clicked on this little tool here and it pops up, and then I click and drag with my left mouse button the arrow, and it allows me to spin this around. Now the lines on the big ring signify 5 degrees of rotation. So it allows us to snap 5 degrees at a time, the rotation. This comes into importance when we get into more complicated models that depend on the same angle for a lot of different things. So we want to be able to snap it to the exact same angle all the time. And then also, you'll notice there's two sets of rings. Actually, it's kind of hard to see the middle one, but there's another one in the middle that's blue that only has a few lines on it. And this allows us to snap it to 90 degrees. So the outside ring is 5 degrees of snap, and the middle one is 90 degrees of snap. And then if you go outside the ring entirely, there is no snapping. So it's free to rotate wherever you want. So there's 3 different things. There's a middle, which is 90 degrees, and then there's the outside ring, which is every 5 degrees, and then outside of that, it's just completely free. Okay. It's a little confusing, but once you start to play with it a bit, you'll get it. It's a little tricky at first though. Okay, so let's go and find that other eyeball, and we're going to bring it over here. We're going to rotate it into position using our arrow keys. Okay, again, we're going to have to spin it around to make it fit, to make it look right, or it's going to look really weird. Okay, so we're going to bring it like that. And we're going to bring the eye sort of pointing towards the beak again, so it gives it a little bit of, like it's staring ahead. And of course, you can change it to whatever you want. There's no particular right way to do it. I'm just following kind of what the instructions show. Okay, so we're in the home stretch now. We're going to build the tail and the 2 wings, and we're going to then position them. So first things first, we're going to build the tail as a submodel, just like we did the body before. We're going to build the tail as a submodel. So we're going to come in and we're going to find the circular piece right here, this dome thing, It's sort of like a circle with a smooth bottom on it. And then we're going to grab the two angle pieces here and here to put on top. Now I've snapped them on top. You can see it sort of sitting on it. And like I said, they'll want to go to places that they fit. If they don't show up when you're trying to hold them out, it means that they're probably not going to fit there. And sometimes the pieces go transparent like this, and that means that they're intersecting another piece and they're not actually properly fitting together. So if you ever get a piece that goes clear, or you can just see a black outline of it, that means that it's intersecting something else. And we'll probably come across that as we build more complex models, because sometimes you just have to let them intersect before you can move them into the right position. Okay, so then the next thing we need to do is the blue sort of piece here that allows us to clip into the other clips that we're gonna do. And then lastly, the last of the navy blue pieces is gonna go on top of that and then attach to the red pieces like that. So you've got the bottom circle, you've got the two angle pieces, you've got the light blue piece and the dark blue piece, and that's for the tail. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna make another submodel. So just like before, we're going to draw a box around our tail, okay? And then we're gonna come down here to where it says create into submodel. We're going to select that, and then it's gonna come up with a name. We're gonna call this tail. Okay, now we can move this as a group. So I'm gonna move it over to the back of the carrot, just in front of the clips, and it should clip right in. Now, this clip can also be clipped like this with just one. See how it goes from clear to not fitting to being like that? Well, that's because in real life you could attach it just with one clip, but we want it to be on two. So we want to make sure that it's centered on there, which it wants to stay in that spot, just like that, okay? And then we're gonna rotate it up after we get the wings on so we can position it right, okay? All right, so the last thing we're gonna do is do the wings. Now it shows here in the sub build here that they're being built from underneath. So the easiest way to do that is to take our camera and turn the whole thing upside down, okay? That way we don't have to worry about getting confused at which way everything is supposed to face, because the wings have to be mirror images of each other, right? They have to be opposite. So this is the best way to do it, by just turning the whole camera upside down to get the right angle that's in the instructions. So then we're gonna grab our first piece, which is here. We're gonna take the first of the white 1x1 tiles, and that's gonna go there. And then we're gonna do a gray piece here. And lastly, like that, okay? And then the red circle, just like that. And that's our first wing. Now, I'm not gonna worry about doing a submodel yet. I wanna get the other one done first, and then we'll worry about building our submodel. So we're gonna go here, here, and then like that, and like that, and like that. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn back around, and we're gonna make these into submodels so that we can position them on the bird. So first off, I'm gonna drag a box around the first wing, and I'm gonna come down here and say create submodel, just like before. I'm gonna call this right wing, okay? And then I'm gonna take that, and one really cool trick with this program is it really depends on where you click on the piece where it gets dragged from. So if I'm clicking here, the mouse is staying over that area of the piece as I move it. But if I click over here where the joint part is, where that clip is, it'll move it from here, which will make it easier for me to tell it to go where it's supposed to go, okay? I'll show you again on this one. So let's make another submodel on this one. We're gonna drag a box over it, make sure they're all selected. We're gonna go create into submodel, and we're gonna call this left wing. Okay, and then we're gonna bring it back over here. And again, I'm gonna show you that cool little trick that if you click and drag on the area that you want to focus on, and we're just gonna rotate like that. And now see what happened? is when I rotated it, the mouse stayed in the right spot, but the model of the wing is moved. So I'm going to set it down again and grab it from this side. And look at that, it snaps right into place, just like that, okay? It might take you a bit to get it to snap in. It's just how your mouse works and how the program works. Not everybody is gonna have as easy of a time as that. But it just takes a little bit of practice, and don't get too upset if it doesn't go in the first few times. It took me a while to understand and sort of see how the program reacts and how it snaps in, okay? All right, so the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pose our little bird here. And because we have articulating wings and tail, we can sort of move them where we want them. And we're gonna use the hinge tool to do that. Just like we did the hinge tool for the eyes, we're gonna use the hinge tool to position the wings. Now, the cool thing about what we've done with the submodel is when we go to hinge tool, it will allow us to rotate where it joins the rest of the parrot. So where the wing meets the body of the parrot is where it's going to be rotating from, which is what we want, because that's where the wings attach, right? So you get 3 arrows here because this ball joint can move in all 3 directions. So first of all, we're going to rotate the wing going down. So we're going to grab this arrow because this arrow is rotating it like this, right? So let's rotate it down so that it's not quite, see how it jumps a bit? There you go. Like that. So about there, okay? And then we can also rotate it back so that it's sort of tucked back, just like a bird's wing does, okay? And then we're gonna do the same thing for this wing over here. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna select it, and we're gonna sort of, I'm gonna just rotate a little bit over here so I can see. And we're gonna grab this arrow here, and this arrow is going to rotate it down like that, okay? And then we're going to sort of move our camera and rotate the wing back like that. So it's sort of, that's not quite even, is it? See how you can tell that? So let's just rotate it down a bit. There we go, that looks better. And then lastly, we're just going to rotate the tail up a bit so that the bird's got his tail up just a little bit, like that. There we go. And there's your parrot, all ready to be perched on a branch or someone's hand or shoulder, all ready to go. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to watch this again and again. That's the best part about having a recording of it. And next day we'll continue on. Okay, we'll build something else that's really cool. All right, so yeah, hit me up in the chat if you have any questions, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.